I'm going to go on the record as saying that is a moonbeam wacky theory that you want to prosecute people creating jobs and producing energy for murder. Let me ask you, Mr. Arkush, how did you get to the Capitol today?
So here's what I want to tell you.
How did you get to the Capitol today?
I took an Uber.
You took an Uber.
Yep.
Now, was that in an automobile?
Yes.
Did that automobile have gasoline in it?
Yes. This is very, very cute. I see where this is going.
So I'm glad you think it's cute. Under your theory, you emitted carbon emissions.
Yep.
Should you be arrested in this room right now and prosecuted for murder? And your position is this is a reasonable and rational thing that we should put the people leading the energy companies in America, producing 8.5 million jobs, we should arrest them and throw them in jail. Is that correct?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to America First, the channel that puts our great nation before globalist agendas and radical left-wing ideologies. If you're new here, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to join our growing community of freedom-loving Americans who believe in putting America first. And if you want to support our mission to bring you the truth that the mainstream media won't tell you, head over to patreon.com/AmericaFirst, where you can support us for as low as $5 a month. Every dollar helps us continue to fight the good fight and expose the radical left's assault on our way of life. Today we're going to break down an absolutely insane hearing that perfectly encapsulates everything that's wrong with the radical left in America today. I'm talking about a congressional hearing where we witnessed Senator Ted Cruz, one of the greatest conservative warriors in the Senate, completely dismantle a radical leftist law professor who literally wants to throw American energy executives in prison for providing the fuel that powers our economy and creates millions of jobs.
Thank you, Senator Whitehouse. One final bit of questioning for you, Mr. Arkush. Define for this committee what homicide means.
Oh, sure. So homicide is a legal term that refers to, it's essentially a blanket term for any form of unlawful killing. And an unlawful killing is causing death with a culpable mental state. Causing a death means substantially contributing to it or accelerating it. And a culpable mental state could be negligence, knowledge, recklessness.
So you wrote an article in 2023 entitled, quote, "Climate Homicide, Prosecuting Big Oil for Climate Deaths." In that article, you argue that oil and gas executives could be prosecuted, not just sued, but criminally prosecuted for homicide, for murder, based on climate change. Is that right?
That's right. I mean, I would be careful with the wording because murder, again, is a technical term. And definitely we're not arguing that they could be prosecuted for first-degree murder. That's killing with intent.
But you want to put them in prison for homicide, lock them up, treat them as criminals, put them in, murderers get put, people who commit homicide get put in jails with violent criminals, and your position is this is a reasonable and rational thing that we should put the people leading the energy companies in America, producing 8.5 million jobs, we should arrest them and throw them in jail. Is that correct?
It could be the case that some executives should be prosecuted in that way. Of course, you can't put a corporation in jail, so there are other remedies in that situation.
But you can put human beings in jail, and presumably you'd put the corporate officers in jail.
Yes, you can.
You'd prosecute them for murder. So don't let there be any ambiguity. And by the way, Senator Whitehouse was really eager to make clear that you're the minority witness. You're the witness he wanted. He was eager to introduce you. I'm going to go on the record as saying that is a moonbeam wacky theory that you want to prosecute people creating jobs and producing energy for murder. Let me ask you, Mr. Arkush, how did you get to the Capitol today?
So here's what I want to tell you.
How did you get to the Capitol today?
I took an Uber.
You took an Uber.
Yep.
Now, was that in an automobile?
Yes.
Did that automobile have gasoline in it?
Yes. This is very, very cute. I see where this is going.
So I'm glad you think it's cute. Under your theory, you emitted carbon emissions.
Yep.
Should you be arrested in this room right now and prosecuted for murder?
No.
Why?
That's not what the law holds.
So tell me why, because you're willing to say the guy who sold you the gasoline should be prosecuted for murder. You're the one that benefited from it. Couldn't you have ridden a bicycle or maybe like some fairy dust to get here?
The guy who sold the gas and 50 years ago knew that it was going to cause globally catastrophic damage that would cause problems for humanity.
But you have exquisite knowledge of this. You are saying you are an expert. So on mens rea,
I'm not done.
You have a level of culpability because you claim that the act of getting in that car was violence, it was murder, that you should be locked up. Why do you get to violate these principles in a way that you just want to lock up the person who sold you the gas, but not the beneficiary of it?
That's your claim, not mine, because to be liable, there are a bunch of reasons, but one of them is you have to substantially contribute to the harm, to the death.
Okay,
and
so
I am
how many car rides is substantially? Is it one? Is it two? Is it 10? How many?
A single individual couldn't possibly contribute enough. The point is...
Well, what about if, say, you're a Democrat politician who
do you
flies...
do you want me to answer
What about if you're a Democrat politician who flies private jets?
It would be helpful if you're asking the questions. Doesn't he get to answer them?
Yeah.
He gets to answer them in my time, just like he gets to answer them in your time when you are asking them.
Seems like I don't get to answer.
So what about Democrat politicians who fly private planes all the time? People like John Kerry, who say, for someone like me, a private jet is the only reasonable way to travel. John Kerry has the climate footprint of a small town in Tennessee. Would you prosecute John Kerry for murder?
So depending on how you calculate it, U.S. fossil fuel or the oil majors, private oil majors, are responsible for around half of global emissions.
My question was, would you prosecute John Kerry for murder?
Obviously not. No.
Okay, so Democrat politicians are exempted.
There is no individual...
Democrat activists are exempted.
I'm not going after people for carbon footprints. The whole thing is actually...
Well, why not, though? Under your principle, carbon is killing us. You claim it is homicide. By the way, this is a whack job theory. You teach in law school. If one of your law students wrote this on an exam, any law professor... General Kobach, you were a law professor for years. If I wrote, it's homicide, lock him up, what grade would you give me and why?
It wouldn't be a good one. And part of the problem here is the same problem that the Baltimore judge, in rejecting all of the 8 claims brought by the city of Baltimore, pointed out with regard to public nuisance theory. And that is, it's not just the company that took the oil out of the ground. The individual consumer made a choice to use it as well. She said she dismissed all of their claims, rejected their attempt to stretch public nuisance doctrine to cover, quote, the results of fossil fuel usage and gas emissions by third parties located all over the world. You can't put the blame either in a homicide case or in a public nuisance case just on the company that extracted the oil from the ground, because everybody's using it, and we're all involved in it, and that's why it doesn't fit homicide easily, and it doesn't fit public nuisance easily either.
With all respect, I don't think that Mr. Kobach is familiar with the relevant law in this case. A defendant in a homicide case can't defend by saying somebody used my products exactly as I intended them to while I was lying to them about
So you're saying we should prosecute you for murder?
No.
Because you drove an automobile here?
No. I'm saying...
Well, you said you couldn't use a defense. The fact that somebody else does it,
you
contributed. You're a murderer. Under your wacky theory, you're a murderer too.
I'm not sure I should be trying to speak. Can I finish a sentence?
For once, we agree. Senator Whitehouse.
Will you allow the witness to answer without interruption during my time?
It's your time. You're welcome.
Just interrupted him during my time.
You are welcome to sing.
No,
he was actually. It was the end of my time. You're welcome to sing, or you can conduct poetry in iambic pentameter. You can blow a kazoo. You can do whatever you wish.
Let me set the stage for you. We have this law professor, Mr. Arkush, who wrote an article in 2023 called "Climate Homicide: Prosecuting Big Oil for Climate Deaths." Just the title alone should tell you everything you need to know about the lunacy we're dealing with. This man literally wants to criminally prosecute oil and gas executives for homicide, for murder, simply for running companies that provide the energy that keeps America running. Now, before we dive into the meat of this, let me explain what we're really witnessing here. This isn't just about some radical professor with a wild theory. This is about the systematic destruction of American energy independence, American jobs, and American prosperity. The radical left has been waging war on our energy sector for decades, and now they're not content with just regulatory warfare and lawfare through civil courts. Now they want to literally criminalize the very industry that built America into the greatest nation on earth. Senator Cruz, God bless him, wasn't having any of this nonsense. He immediately cut to the heart of the matter by asking Arkush to define homicide. The professor explained that homicide is essentially any form of unlawful killing that involves substantially contributing to or accelerating death with a culpable mental state like negligence, knowledge, or recklessness. Fair enough, that's a standard legal definition. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. This professor genuinely believes that oil and gas executives should be prosecuted for homicide, thrown in prison with violent criminals because they run companies that produce fossil fuels. Let me repeat that he wants to put people in jail for providing energy to America. Not for breaking any actual laws, not for committing any actual crimes, but for running legitimate businesses that employ 8.5 million Americans and power our entire economy. Senator Cruz, being the brilliant legal mind that he is, immediately exposed the hypocrisy and lunacy of this position. He asked Arkush how he got to the Capitol that day. The answer? He took an Uber, an automobile, that ran on gasoline, the very same gasoline produced by the companies he wants to criminalize. This is where Cruz's genius really shines through. He asked the professor why he shouldn't be arrested right there in the hearing room for murder, since by his own logic, he emitted carbon emissions by taking that Uber. The professor tried to squirm out of it by saying that's not what the law holds, but Cruz wasn't letting him off the hook that easily. You see, this is the fundamental problem with the radical left's climate hysteria. They want to criminalize everyone else's behavior while exempting themselves from their own standards. They want to destroy the livelihoods of hardworking Americans while continuing to benefit from the very systems they claim are killing the planet. Cruz pressed him further. Couldn't you have ridden a bicycle? Or maybe used some fairy dust to get here? I love that line because it perfectly captures the absurdity of the left's position. They want to eliminate fossil fuels, but they have no realistic alternative that can maintain our standard of living and economic prosperity. The professor tried to defend his position by saying that the oil companies knew 50 years ago that their products would cause globally catastrophic damage, but Cruz brilliantly pointed out that the professor himself has exquisite knowledge of these supposed dangers, yet he still chose to take that Uber. If carbon emissions are really murder, then by his own logic, he's a murderer too. This is exactly the kind of intellectual honesty and fearless questioning that we need more of in Washington. While other senators might have let this radical professor spew his anti-American propaganda unchallenged, Cruz held his feet to the fire and exposed the fundamental contradictions in his worldview. But it gets even better. Cruz then asked about Democrat politicians who fly private jets, specifically mentioning John Kerry, who famously said that for someone like him, a private jet is the only reasonable way to travel. Kerry has the carbon footprint of a small town in Tennessee, yet somehow he's exempt from this professor's murder theory. The professor's response? Obviously not. He wouldn't prosecute John Kerry for murder. So there you have it, folks. Democrat politicians are exempt from their own standards. The rules apply to everyone else, but not to the elite leftist politicians who jet around the world preaching about climate change while living like kings. This perfectly illustrates the class warfare that's at the heart of the radical left's agenda. They want to destroy middle-class jobs in the energy sector while protecting their own wealthy donors and political allies. They want to criminalize the executives who provide affordable energy to working families while giving a pass to the politicians who burn more fossil fuels in a month than most Americans do in a year. Senator Cruz didn't stop there. He brought up the case of Baltimore, where a judge rejected all 8 claims brought by the city against oil companies. The judge pointed out that you can't put all the blame on the company that extracted the oil because individual consumers made the choice to use it. Everyone is involved in the fossil fuel economy, and that's why this homicide theory doesn't work legally or logically. This is a crucial point that the radical left refuses to acknowledge. We live in a complex, interconnected economy where fossil fuels are essential to virtually every aspect of our lives. The food we eat, the clothes we wear, the homes we live in, the transportation we use, the medical equipment that saves lives, the technology that connects us, all of it depends on fossil fuels in some way. You can't just criminalize one part of this system without acknowledging that we're all participants in it. But that's exactly what the radical left wants to do. They want to demonize and criminalize the producers while ignoring the consumers, the government officials who approve permits, the investors who fund these companies, and everyone else who benefits from affordable energy. The hearing got heated when Cruz called this what it is, a whack job theory. He asked General Kobach, who was also a witness and former law professor, what grade he would give if a student wrote that energy executives should be locked up for homicide. Kobach's response was that it wouldn't be a good grade, and he explained exactly why this theory fails both legally and logically. But here's what really gets me fired up about this whole situation. This isn't just about some radical professor with a crazy theory. This is about the systematic attack on American energy independence that we've been witnessing for years. The radical left has been using every tool at their disposal to destroy our domestic energy production, from regulatory sabotage to environmental lawfare to outright criminalization. They shut down the Keystone XL pipeline, destroying thousands of jobs and forcing us to import oil from countries that hate us. They've made it nearly impossible to get permits for new oil and gas projects on federal lands. They've weaponized the EPA to strangle our energy sector with regulations. And now they want to literally throw energy executives in prison for providing the fuel that powers America. Meanwhile, what's the result of these policies? Higher energy costs for working families, more dependence on foreign oil from hostile nations, fewer good-paying jobs in American energy, a weaker economy, and reduced competitiveness on the global stage. All in the name of fighting climate change, which they claim is an existential threat, while China builds new coal plants every week and becomes the world's dominant economic power. This is about more than just energy policy. This is about the fundamental question of whether America will remain a free, prosperous nation or whether we'll surrender our sovereignty to global elites who want to control every aspect of our lives in the name of saving the planet. Senator Cruz understands this, which is why he fought so hard in this hearing. He knows that if we allow the radical left to criminalize American energy production, we're not just destroying an industry, we're destroying the foundation of American prosperity and independence. The professor's theory isn't just legally unsound, it's morally bankrupt. It seeks to punish the very people who have made America the most prosperous nation in human history. It seeks to criminalize the industry that has lifted billions of people out of poverty worldwide. It seeks to destroy the jobs and livelihoods of millions of hardworking Americans who have done nothing wrong except provide the energy that makes modern life possible. And for what? For a climate theory that has been wrong in its predictions for decades? For a movement that exempts its own leaders from the sacrifices they demand from everyone else? For a globalist agenda that seeks to transfer wealth and power from America to international organizations and hostile foreign powers? This hearing also exposed another crucial truth about the radical left: they don't believe in their own rhetoric. If they truly believed that fossil fuel use was murder, they would stop using fossil fuels immediately. They would walk or bike everywhere, live in caves, and refuse to use any products made with or transported by fossil fuels. But they don't do any of that because they know it's not actually murder. They know it's just a political weapon to attack their enemies and advance their agenda. The hypocrisy is staggering. John Kerry flies around the world in private jets while lecturing us about carbon emissions. Al Gore lives in a mansion that uses more electricity in a month than most families use in a year. Hollywood celebrities who preach about climate change own multiple homes and yachts. And now we have law professors who take Ubers to congressional hearings where they argue for criminalizing the very industry that made their transportation possible. This is why we need more fighters like Ted Cruz in Washington. He's not afraid to call out the radical left's hypocrisy. He's not intimidated by their academic credentials or their moral posturing. He cuts through their rhetoric and exposes the fundamental contradictions in their worldview. Cruz understands that this isn't really about the environment or public health. It's about power. It's about control. It's about the radical left's desire to fundamentally transform America by destroying the economic foundation that has made us the greatest nation on earth. The energy sector employs 8.5 million Americans directly and millions more in related industries. These are good-paying jobs that support families and communities across the country. These are the jobs that built the American middle class. And the radical left wants to criminalize the executives who create these jobs and provide affordable energy to working families. Think about what this means for the future of America. If we allow the radical left to succeed in their war on American energy, we won't just lose jobs and economic growth. We'll lose our independence. We'll become dependent on foreign nations for our energy needs. We'll be at the mercy of hostile regimes who can cut off our energy supplies whenever they want to pressure us politically. We've seen this movie before. When Russia invaded Ukraine, European nations that had become dependent on Russian energy were forced to choose between their principles and their heating bills. Many chose to keep buying Russian oil and gas even as Putin was committing war crimes. Is that the future we want for America? Senator Cruz knows the answer is no. That's why he's been such a strong advocate for American energy independence throughout his career. He understands that energy security is national security. He understands that affordable energy is essential to a thriving economy. And he understands that the radical left's war on fossil fuels is really a war on American prosperity and independence. This hearing was a perfect microcosm of the broader battle we're fighting for the soul of America. On one side, you have radical leftist academics who want to criminalize American industry and destroy American jobs in the name of fighting climate change. On the other side, you have principled conservatives like Ted Cruz who are fighting to preserve American prosperity, independence, and freedom. The choice couldn't be clearer. We can choose to embrace the radical left's vision of a deindustrialized America where energy is scarce and expensive, where millions of Americans lose their jobs, and where we become dependent on foreign nations for our basic needs. Or we can choose to support leaders like Ted Cruz who believe in American energy independence, American jobs, and American prosperity. I know which side I'm on, and I hope you do too. This hearing showed us exactly what's at stake. The radical left isn't content with just regulating American energy out of existence. They want to literally criminalize it. They want to throw the executives who create American jobs in prison. They want to treat the provision of affordable energy as a crime against humanity. We cannot let this happen. We cannot allow the radical left to destroy American energy independence. We cannot allow them to criminalize American industry. We cannot allow them to destroy millions of American jobs in the name of fighting climate change while exempting themselves from their own standards. That's why we need more fighters like Ted Cruz in Washington. That's why we need to support conservative candidates who understand what's really at stake. That's why we need to vote, volunteer, and donate to ensure that America First patriots have the resources they need to fight back against the radical left's assault on our way of life. The battle for America's future is being fought right now, and hearings like this one show us exactly what we're up against. But they also show us that we have principled leaders who are willing to fight for us. Ted Cruz didn't back down from this radical professor. He exposed his hypocrisy, demolished his arguments, and showed the American people exactly what the radical left really believes. We need more of that kind of fearless leadership. We need more politicians who are willing to stand up to the radical left's intimidation tactics and speak truth to power. We need more leaders who understand that America First isn't just a slogan, it's a governing philosophy that puts the interests of the American people above the demands of global elites and radical activists. This hearing was a victory for common sense, for American energy independence, and for the millions of Americans who work in the energy sector. But it was just one battle in a much larger war. The radical left isn't going to give up their assault on American energy. They're going to keep pushing their extreme agenda, and we need to be ready to fight back. That's why channels like America First are so important. We're here to tell you the truth that the mainstream media won't tell you. We're here to expose the radical left's agenda and show you what's really at stake. We're here to celebrate the victories of principled conservatives like Ted Cruz and to hold accountable the politicians who are selling out America to appease the radical left. If you believe in this mission, if you believe in putting America first, then I need you to do 3 things. First, make sure you're subscribed to this channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Second, share this video with your friends and family so they can see what's really happening in Washington. And third, if you're able, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/AmericaFirst for as low as $5 a month. Your support helps us continue to bring you the truth and fight back against the radical left's assault on American values. Together, we can ensure that America remains the land of the free and the home of the brave. Together, we can preserve American energy independence and the millions of jobs that depend on it. Together, we can put America first. Thanks for watching, Patriots. Keep fighting the good fight, and I'll see you in the next video.